I'm teaching teenagers. My name is Phil Weimer and I've worked at Sheffield College for nearly 30 years now. Over that time, I've worked with some of the most challenging students we've got in the city. In addition to that, prior to that, I was a youth leader in Wolverhampton. So I think it's fair to say I'm reasonably good at getting on with students and getting on with students who display challenging behaviour. So my boss not long ago said to me, Phil, you're good at dealing with students and getting on with students. Would you do a video or do some training on why? And I went, oh, all right then. And then I realised I didn't know why I was good. I could probably guess at a few things. So what I did then, and what I'm doing in this short video now, is I'm going to go through and look at some of the theory behind why I have been reasonably effective at getting on with students. And for some people who are younger, maybe it will help you get on better with students and so on. I think the one thing I would say is that if I was going to sum up the approach that I adopt, it's a relationship-based approach. It's fundamentally, as you'll see in a moment, all about relationships. I'd really welcome your feedback. If you can post on YouTube at the end of the video, that would be great. And for each one of the slides that are coming up, I'm going to give you a bit of theory, and I'm going to give you some practical tips that I've used and some examples. So I hope you enjoy the video. Without further ado, let's go to the first slide, which is it's all about relationships. So, as I mentioned before, I believe in the best description of how to best get on with students is to call it a relationship-based approach, and this is backed up by a wonderful video on TED TV. If you search on YouTube, it comes up, being watched by millions of people, and she says it's all about relationships and all about the connections between you and students, and all about understanding relationships. And the best line in it for me is kids don't learn from teachers they don't like. So there's a few key things in there that we have to think about if we're going to build relationships with the people we teach and make the most of it. So what are they? Well, the first thing I would advocate doing is a one-page profile. Some years ago, we had some educational psychologists came into the college I work in. They said, you're doing a good job. You know, you get on with students, la, la, la. But where's your one-page profile? What's a one-page profile? One-page profile is just a simple way of students telling you about them and telling you how they need, what support they need. It's dead simple. If you search the internet, there are tons of examples, and it's important to do that, and not only do it, but use it, have a look at what their interests are and so on, and have a look at what the support needs are, and you can change it as you go along. So I'm a firm believer in a one-page profile. It's used in some schools, so I would advocate always doing that and all teachers using that. So you've used that and you go into the class, and my question for you is, I would, after 2 or 3 weeks, know 3 things about every student in my class. Do you know what? I might even not know the name, but I'll tell you I know about them. So they'll come in and I'll know the football teams, their brothers, their sisters, their interests, and so on and so forth. And that means we can have a chat. And it also means I can tailor the class to meet those interests or ask them questions around those interests and relate it to them. I think the other thing is about questions, which I'm going to cover a bit later on. Questions, if by simply asking questions and students asking questions of other students shows you care. Research shows people who ask questions are highly regarded. As long as you ask it in a sort of casual, friendly way, then you know it's a good way of building relationships. And how else can you find out information about them? The final 2 things she mentions that I think you've got to be aware of is you need to be a great actor. I think in the end I can probably grow to like nearly every student, but there are times when you don't like them, and there are times when students come in and they never need to know that. And I think that many staff don't get project the fact they don't like the students, and then are surprised when they don't get when the students don't work for them or don't turn up or whatever. And I think the final thing is you're a champion. Teaching is tough. Teaching kids who've got huge, all sorts going on in their lives that they bring into college, and you need to be aware of that, and you're a champion. I mean, when the summer holiday comes where I work, a lot of the students aren't happy. We're teachers, we've got some time off. The students, miss the connection, and to some of the students, you're a champion, and you're the person who they look up to, and you will mentor them, and you are the most important thing in their life, even if sometimes that means that they don't behave in a way that you would believe that that's the case. So don't underestimate your importance. Build relationships and use some of the strategies that I've put on the yellow box here to try and build relationships early on in the college year. the next advice, fairly obvious advice I would say, is smile and think about your body language. There's loads of people who you will see who seem to say the right thing, but their body doesn't say it, and you know that from students yourself. So we need to think about it as teachers. Think about your ego. We all bring an ego with us, and you sometimes have to think a little bit about the effect of your ego on how you interact with students. And remember, with students, once you get to know them, they're all pretty good. I can honestly say in 30 years, I don't think I've ever, in all honesty, can say I've met a student, come out of a relationship with a student, said, you know what, I don't like them. In fact, I haven't. So my advice would be smile. Ron Gutman, watch the video. It's a TED TV talk, and if you smile, you'll live 7 years longer. So that's worth doing. I think the other thing is that Ron talks about is if you smile, students smile as well. So even if you're saying something that's a bit tough to them, like, I really don't like you doing that, you're not doing that, you're going to get a bit of reaction, and don't do that. Okay, so I think the other thing is that a strategy I often adopt is I'm kind of chatty and happy in class, and I say, put your phone away. And then I'll move back and say, yeah, and put your phone, so you can go from being a very smiley person to that, and then back in again. And it gets the point across because you're not smiling at that point, but you're not making a big deal out of it. There's a little bit more on that later on. Think about your body language, open body language, saying with your body what you're saying with your mouth, I think is really important. I see a number of teachers say, well, I only did that. I said it was all right. And then you're thinking, well, yeah, look at you now, and look and make students aware of their body language. You don't look very happy, and so on, and you can tell that. And I think people being aware of their body language, there's loads of stats that show how important body language is for students. Egos, there are not many teachers, but some teachers seem to watch too many Dirty Harry films, or, Coach Carter, good film actually, but this kind of like drawing of lines and where you go and like, you're a good teacher, you've got a qualification, the students like you. You don't have to worry about someone who's come in with a green brain. You'll see about that in another episode, who's had a bad experience and taking you down and losing your ego. Put your ego in a tin. Just put it in a tin and know that you're good, and let them rise above it. And a lot of teachers don't, and they end up in confrontational situations when they don't need to. There's no point in doing that. So, this idea, don't smile before Christmas, I've heard. Really? Insane. Anyone who doesn't smile before Christmas. By the way, it doesn't mean say everyone's got to go around going like that all the time, because there are wry smiles, and people, you know what I mean by a smile. It's a metaphor, isn't it, for having a positive attitude, I guess. And remember, it's the behaviour, not the student. Students coming in and behaving in a certain manner, in a certain way, that's negative. It's separate the behaviour underneath the student. When you talk to them one-to-one, when you find out why they behave like that, when they've apologised, which they will if you give them a chance and deal with them in the right way, they'll be fine. It's the behaviour, not the student, and it's important you emphasise that with students so you don't break the relationship that you've built up with them. Okay, so watch Ron Gutman, smile, be positive, and live a long life. Okay, the next person you might want to have a look at on YouTube is Bill Rodgers. Bill Rodgers has done a number of videos on, he works predominantly in schools, about how to deal with classroom management strategies. And again, what I mentioned earlier on, I used to, do certain things, and I watched Bill, I thought, yeah, and it means that you're more purposeful in how you do it, and you understand the theory behind what you're doing, and so on. So he's very calm. And he asks you really to think about your behaviour and how you manage the classroom environment. And I think he's got 4 key messages, which you can look at the video. You don't need me to tell you, but I'll quickly go through them now because I've experienced all of them. Take up time. If someone's at the back of the class messing around, or anywhere in the class, you say, Phil, will you stop, please? Messing around, la 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 la. They get a bit like that. Put your phone away, or put whatever away. Now you've got a choice there. You can stand over. If you stand over them and go, when everything stops, everyone's looking at you, you're going to create a problem. Leave them be, turn away, and go back, and then keep an eye out, and you'll find they always put the phone away, or put whatever, stop doing whatever they're doing. Don't dwell on that with a spotlight. Don't spotlight it. It will, and it will go away. Tactically ignore stuff. I remember a student came. He was really, really difficult to get him into college. He actually went on to university in the end, which is phenomenal because, you know, at that point he wasn't engaging. And I managed to persuade him to come in. And I was like, Ashley, you know, you come on, man, you're not coming into college, la la la. You're not going to do your work, and you know, he got a lot going. And he had got a lot going on outside. So no, but if you know. So as he's walking out, the security guard was there actually, just passing by, and he called me a prick. He went, "You prick," like that, and I heard that. And I sort of grinned, and I thought, you know, he's had a bad day. There's no one in the class was there. I think the secretary was in the room at the time. And I grinned, and she went and said, "Did you hear what he just said?" I said, yeah, he'll apologise, don't worry. Anyway, he went to class. As he was going past, I left the door open. "Ashley, come have a word." And I said, "You called me a..." And he went, "Yeah, I'm sorry, Phil. You know, I'm really sorry. It didn't affect me. You know, going back to ego, I put my ego in a tin. You know, I thought, yeah, it's a throw on." So I'm not saying you can always. That was a scenario in a staff room whereby it was, maybe you could argue it was easy for me to ignore. But even if I was in a classroom and someone chundered under the desk, and maybe some of them heard, just be a bit deaf and go back. Because if they, you know, and then collar them afterwards. And that's another thing that Bill says, don't do it in public, do it privately, which is an example. So tactically ignore things and do it in private, not in public. Being ridiculously polite, you know, smile and being polite goes a long way. "Would you mind, please?" You know, doing that. He speaks really calmly. I don't. I'm quite, you know, bouncy and got more probably enthusiastic than him. Find your own style. You don't have to be Bill. You don't have to be me. You have to be you. But you know, you have but the point is, you're calm in how you deal with this, and you're very polite. "Would you mind, please?" Even if the student isn't polite backwards, they will apologise. They're going through a difficult period. They may have stuff going on outside of college. They may be doing it to impress their friends. Their friends think you are all right. Everyone knows you are all right. So put your ego in a tin. Follow some advice from Bill. Smile, and you'll have a better experience in class. Okay, the next person that I'm sure you've probably heard of, but it's really powerful and effective work. It's been around for quite a while. Is Carol Dweck. And she talks about your mindset and developing a growth mindset as part of what you do in a school to try and encourage learners to learn how to learn effectively. Very, very effective, but sometimes seen as, oh yeah, you just as not applied correctly, I think you would say. And also there's another word that's bounced around at the moment, metacognition, which means effectively thinking about thinking, getting students to think about thinking. So I think we had to have a look at those two bits of two words, metacognition and mindset, and think about how you can use those to manage behaviour and also to learn yourself, because fundamentally they're very powerful. We did a pilot in our college in the English department where every lesson they did some work on metacognition and mindset, and the results were good. Anecdotally, the results that on the student behaviour and so on, and there was some really positive feedback. So it's something that you should think about, building metacognition and mindset into your class. Well, what would that involve? Well, one of the strategies you could use that actually fits in with some other things that we'll talk about later is not yet. Carol Dweck talks about, you can't do that yet, Phil. It's not, I can't do it yet. And that's what you can feed forward and try and get students to realise that they can do it in the end. And that, again, having role models who've been there before and having you as a mentor and having other people encourage them and so on all make a huge difference on that. Concentrate on process. You know, we're all going to make mistakes. And we all need strategies. And one of the important things about that fits in with metacognition is when you're doing your lesson, why don't you say what you're thinking? So you might say, "Oh, I was doing this, and I thought if we did this, you know, we might do that," and so on. That shows that you're thinking, and that's quite a good strategy for them to realise that you're thinking about your thinking. So I think that's quite important. I think the other thing is admit you make mistakes. That wasn't very good. Should have did that for too long. You know, I'm tired. You know, be a human being. Teachers, again, going back to the ego point, we get tired. We make mistakes. We're crotchety and so on. Just say sorry. Yeah, made an error. Blah blah blah, and all that kind of thing. Consequences. Some people believe, I love football. You Phil, go to your maths lesson, I'll take your football away. You're not going to make me like maths by taking away my football. I would argue, in fact, and also you'll upset the relationship that you built up with me. So I wouldn't do that. I think this idea of consequences don't work. I think there are better strategies to use to try and make me appreciate the value of maths, because at the end of the day you want hearts and minds, and doing that is going to break the relationship. It is completely counter to the whole strategy of a relationship-based approach, and it doesn't work, by the way, either. So or if it does, it's short term. The final point is rewards, and Dweck and others would say reward effort. So you got that wrong, Phil, but you spent ages on it. And the problem with the criticism of mindset is that then people say, yeah, anyway, off you go. But you have to go, what are you going to do differently? What's your strategy for next time, and so on? And that's the missing link that I think some people would criticise how mindset's been applied, not by Dweck. She's always acknowledged that. So two words I think we should be aware of. I think we should build them into classroom, and I also think they fit in with the relationship-based approach and with some of the teaching strategies that I'm going to go through in a moment. So I hope you found that useful. Slide. This guy is Dylan Williams, and I've recently come across him, and I think he's brilliant. So search him up and find out what he has to say. And the three key things I'm going to give you that fit in with what we're doing in the video today are that try and make what's the ultimate aim of your class is to make participation obligatory. And I like that. I like the idea of the fact that you're trying to make everyone participate, obviously at different levels and so on and so forth. I think the other two things that are big in education, and as someone who goes around and observes teachers a lot, are questioning, which is generally speaking not particularly is a skill most teachers need to develop, and formative assessment or assessment for learning is the other big thing. And I think both of them fit in with relationships. So if we were to think about those two key points, questioning and formative assessment, questions cause thinking. Questions are good because they show an interest in you. If you ask the right questions, if you can differentiate your questions, then it shows that you understand your students. Your students, Phil likes football, and do you think about that, or the level I'm at, and you can differentiate your questions. So questioning is something we all need to work at. Biggest single criticism I have when I see people doing questions in class is they don't pick interesting enough topics. They certainly always fail to give students thinking time. So asking out an overhead question that someone answers isn't no one's thought, apart from that kid. Everyone else is thinking about what they're having for tea. So don't avoid doing something where someone shouts out and so on. Do something where everybody has to think, and then use higher order questions that people have to think. And Dylan Thomas and a few others are very keen. Something I hadn't come across until recently, saying do a statement. All drugs should be legal. Discuss. Makes me have a perceived position. Makes me have come forward with some views, and that's better than just asking them, what do you think about drugs? So use statements, allow thinking time. The second point I mentioned was formative assessment or assessment for learning, same thing. So I go around your class, and if you know every single individual, your relationship's good. Part of that is knowing that I can't spell. I'm useless at spelling. So you can do things in the here and in the now. Say, we're going to do a little something in a minute, Phil. See if you can just improve that and whatever. And it means I've got that individual attention, because one-to-one works, and I know that you care about me. And I think formative assessment is about you knowing me and doing something with me that means I learn. And I think that builds the relationship. So I think questioning and formative assessment are all part of the package, if you like, that will mean you'll have good classes, and you'll have interesting classes and fun classes, and classes where people feel they're learning and there's value. And if you have good classes, you won't have as much behaviour issues. My wife spends hours, she's a primary school teacher, working on classes, and I say, why do you do, sometimes you think, well, because she works an amazing amount of hours every week. She says, if I don't get this class right, I have behaviour problems. So I do the work out of class, and then in class is easy. So interesting classes using formative assessment and questions are very, very effective. And some of the ways he says it and just the evidence he backs it up with, I would strongly recommend having a look at it. And he says effort always beats ability, and he says develop skills. And I've just been on an English course where the teacher came in who was delivering the course and watched us, wasn't interested in the content, but just was interested that we were working out where to go to solve the particular problem. not about stuff, it was about skills, I think I'd say. So by developing skills, and it's changing students' behaviour and not challenging it, and it's developing their skills, and it's about formative assessment, making sure they're clear about where they're going and what they're doing, and that you care about them. And if students think you care about them, they'll turn up for you and they'll work for you and they won't misbehave. Or if you ask them to stop misbehaving, they will do. So I hope you found it interesting. And that is the last slide in this section, but I've got one more you might be interested in. Of what we looked at Rita Pierson's TED Talk. Rita says it's all about relationship. Kids don't learn of teachers they don't like, and I agree with that. We looked at Ron Gutman. Smiling and body language are critically important, and you'll live longer. So surely that's got to be worth looking at and thinking about how you teach your classes and interact with students. We looked at Bill Rodgers, who's got some really good classroom strategies, and ask you to look at yourself and see, is the problem how you deal with stuff and your body language and so on. We looked at Carol Dweck, mindset, growth mindset, and how that can be applied, and it's about skills and developing and resilience, and saying that we, feed forward. If you do this next time, you can improve, and how that relates to metacognition, thinking about thinking, and you talking about your thinking and you being honest about you ticks 2 boxes. Metacognition, it tells you, I was thinking this, and also students think, do you know what, he's honest or she's honest, and he's admitted to mistakes, got that one wrong, and so on. And I don't know why teachers aren't more human in the class, a lot of them. And finally, Dylan Williams, loads of theory, questioning and formative assessment. Questions, students like people who ask questions, people like people who ask questions, as long as they're done in the right way. They show you care, you learn about students, and you can differentiate, and you can cause thinking. And that's it's well worth watching his videos on that. And he uses formative assessment minute by minute, going around that class and saying, does that person know what they've got to do next? Have they sussed it out before I move on? Everyone understand? Yeah, move on? No. Do they really understand? How do I know they understand? Because it's building blocks, isn't it? Building it forward. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. In the mere process of doing this video, I've learned stuff as well. That's how it always works, isn't it? I really value feedback. I have got one more episode of this I could do with, and if I get the feedback and people want it, I will do it. If not, I won't. How did I do the background? If you're interested on whether I use Microsoft Teams, I went to PowerPoint, worked on the backgrounds, saved them as JPEGs, imported them into Teams, and then if you just project it onto the background, it works reasonably well, although you do get a mirror image, which isn't ideal. You can do it on other packages, and I guess Google will catch up at some point as well. And I did a little bit of editing. I did all this in one take, so there are errors, but if you put all of the videos together, if you do it in little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I did just do it in one take, boom, 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 because of time and stuff, and then you can put them all together on something called Clipchamp, which is cheap, free actually, and it's really good. I like Clipchamp. You can put music and all that stuff on, but I won't bother doing that. So post a comment. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if I get good comments, I'll do another one. If not, I won't, and I've enjoyed doing it anyway. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Good night.